Are you that candidate who feels confident in a job interview, but gets nervous when asked to talk about a major achievement you've had in your career? How should you answer that? Or better yet, how should you use the STAR method correctly? Hi, how are you? I'm Romulo Gutierrez. This is the Job Room channel. I've been a recruiter and talent selector for 27 years. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how to use the STAR method in your job interview answers. Be sure of one thing. Recruiters and hiring managers usually give preference to candidates who use the method situation, task, action, and result throughout their answers in job interviews. So let's get started. First of all, this type of answer should mainly be used for questions that involve situations. I'm going to give 3 examples of such questions here. Questions like, tell me about a time when you had to deal with an upset customer. Or, tell me about a time when you had a serious problem with the technology you were using and had to solve it quickly. Or questions like, give me an example where you were able to apply your knowledge of Python and it made a difference in a software project you were working on. These are just a few examples. What would you do if, for example, you were helping a customer and they were very dissatisfied with the service? Every time the interviewer puts you in these kinds of situations, you shouldn't answer in a theoretical way. You need to have concrete answers. So here's the first tip. Always be tangible, meaning bring real examples. I'll give you some examples in part B of this video, okay? It's really bad when the recruiter asks a question, tell me about a time when you delivered great results. And instead of the candidate describing a specific situation, they say, well, as an electrical engineer, I am extremely capable of delivering results. I improved some metrics, but they can't actually give a specific example, which was the question, a specific occasion. All right? Second important tip for using the STAR method correctly. Always try to use STAR in your examples. Create examples that relate to the job description. Okay? Let me give you an example. I'm a nurse, I'm in an interview, and they ask me, tell me about a situation where you had to solve a problem when a patient was having a cardiac arrest right in front of you. When they ask me this, it's important to focus on the job opening. Let's say the position is for working in the intensive care unit. An intensive care unit. I can't give an example of a cardiac arrest that happened in the emergency room. I'm going to try to give an example from within the intensive care unit. So I would say, look, there was a situation where a patient who was very stable, almost ready to be discharged from the ICU, suddenly went into cardiac arrest right during my shift. And there were very few people in the ICU at that moment. So the situation, the task. My task was to immediately start resuscitation procedures. Right away, I took another action, which was to call a colleague who was nearby to help me with the procedure. The colleague helped me, saw that the maneuver we had to perform on that patient was difficult, and he also called the medical team, who at that moment were at another bed in the hospital. From there, we managed to reverse the situation. The result was that the patient was revived with practically no after effects. So notice that the example is within the job description. It's important for you to bring up this example in relation to the job description. Suddenly, if you feel more comfortable, you can adapt your answer not to the STAR method, but you can adapt it to the PAR method. There. It stands for problem, action, and result. So you can shorten this process. Instead of telling the whole situation, describing the action, and stating the task, you can be more direct and use the PAR method. So now I'm going to give an example here as a sales manager. The question is, give me an example where you had to work with a sales team that was really unmotivated and getting poor results. An example, there's no point in just bringing up theory. And now I ask you to think, in your field of work and in your profession, what could you answer? And then this manager can use the PAR method. Look, here's a situation. There was a big problem where out of my 12 salespeople, 8 of them were delivering sales numbers that were way below expectations. So the action I took, PA, the action I took was to conduct individual interviews with each of them, and they reported that they were feeling discouraged by the commission payment policy, saying that the company was paying too little. The action I took was to talk individually with each one. I spoke with the company's board so we could review those numbers, and the board promised me that if they managed to surpass, for example, a 12% monthly target, we would be able to pay them at least 3% of that amount. And the result of that was that I made this promise to them, re-energized the team, and the results started coming in again automatically. So you see that the PAR method follows the same idea as the STAR methodology, just in a more condensed way. Maybe this will be more interesting for you. I'll keep going with the tips, but before I continue, if you want to simulate an interview, practice a real interview where you'll be interviewed live and online by me to get feedback on whether you're doing well, where you might be struggling, and what you need to improve in your interview. You can reach out to me using the link in the video description, which is also pinned in the first comment. There on that link, you'll find the page, and you can already choose the times you want to practice. You can make your payments securely through the Hotmart platform, 100% safe. You schedule your session and immediately receive the link for your interview, or interviews if you booked more than one session. Also, in the first comment and in the description, there's an ebook called How to Be the Best Candidate in Job Interviews. Check it out, it will really help you. Here at Job Room, videos are never missing and never fail. New videos every Wednesday, so subscribe and leave your like. An important tip for you to do well with the STAR method is to bring your story chest. What's a story chest? It's really tough to show up at an interview and have to think on the spot about what the recruiter might ask. So what's my tip? Before any interview, carefully read the job description, and let me make a quick side note here. The best friend of getting rejected in a job interview, the best friend of rejection, is improvisation. Every time you improvise too much in your interview, your chances of being rejected go way up. So it's important. Not that you have to memorize your lines or remember everything word for word, but I do recommend it. Read the job description carefully, really read it. Every time you're going to an interview, pay close attention. Then pick 2, 3, or 4 words that sum up the job. Let me go back to that example, or actually, let me use a different one now. Let's say I'm a head chef. And in the job description, it says I need to master the art of French cuisine. And also, the creation of French dessert menus. When I read that, I already have 2 or 3 cases or examples, whichever you prefer, in my mind. So I think, okay, first example, I'll talk about when I developed. That chocolate mousse from the chef, which I learned from Chef Eric Jacquin. And then I think about the story. I already plan out the whole approach I'm going to share. So I already have 2 or 3 examples that I keep in mind before the job interview. When I get there and they ask, tell me about a time, give me an example, or what would you do if, I already have examples mapped out that fit really well with the job opening. Because the main goal of the STAR or PAR answers is exactly what? The recruiter who's interviewing you or the technical lead for the area, the manager, wants to see if you have the technical skills and the behavioral traits for the position. So if your practical answers, par or star, however you want to call them, I prefer par because they're more concise. If your answers are well connected to the job description, the interviewer thinks this is the candidate I actually need. This is the candidate who will really solve the problems for this position. So it's very important that you do this. And one of the most common questions asked in job interviews that many candidates mess up in their script is the tell me about yourself. It's asked 91% of the time as the first question in a job interview, and I left a complete script for you to watch here. Go check it out. Excellent preparation. Prepare your examples well. Take care and see you next time. Bye.